Test, test. Make sure this is all working here before I start talking. See if I can update this. I'm going to turn the volume down. There we go. We're live here, so I'm going to click on that. Make sure that volume is down. Okay, there we go. All right, I'll wait for a few people to get in here first before we start tonight. Got about an hour here. I'm going to post this on Blue Sky and let everybody know. Southern Oregon is first. Idaho, Spirit Lake, Idaho. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Checking out some active weather. Fall is finally here. We're finally starting to get... Oh, and by the way, how's the audio? Somebody let me know how the audio is. Getting windy in Olympia. Five by 5. Okay, you guys are hearing me well. Sounds good. See if I can get some of the moderators in here. Let's see, how should I do this? There we go. Okay, I can see the chat a little bit better now. Yeah, finally some fall weather coming up here. We got some windy conditions here tonight already ongoing northwest interior across Vancouver Island. And I heard it's picking up there down in Olympia right now as well. I'm going to go ahead and click on the observations here. And you can see some of these gusts up across Whidbey Island. Look at that, 59 miles per hour already today. And we should be coming up on the peak here, but it should remain pretty blustery here across the region for the next couple hours as well. Bellingham 45. If I click on Olympia, what are we doing? 28 miles per hour right now. JBLM 23. Check it out. Bowie 46041 at 36 miles per hour. Next we're at Quileute here 39. Not bad. That is a gale. Not windy here. I'm around SeaTac down here. We don't have much wind ongoing right now. That might change here coming up, but yeah, it's that time of the season. I plan on making live streams a little bit more regular, or doing them a little bit more regularly. I need to get onto that. And what are we doing here? We got Bowie 4604087, 42 miles per hour, 45 max gust. Let's see, right off of Southwest BC, 38. We had some huge wind gusts up here earlier across some of Vancouver Island, or just off the coastline here. Looks like that's calmed down a bit. Doesn't show the gust off of some of those stations. Still some strong winds out here. You can see what Herbert Island, 44 gust. 54 there. Sisters Island automatic weather reporting system. Ryan is in the house. Ryan V. Lower Mainland weather page. He's on X. He's on Blue Sky now. The Pacific Northwest weather family. Federal Way light breeze. Yeah, not much wind down here across the Central Sound yet. I was going to check that. I haven't looked at the recent HER to see. We're going to check that right now, in fact. So we got the 0Z is running. You can see, in fact, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here because I want to see when. We'll go to Washington State. So you can see the winds up across Whidbey, San Juans, Bellingham, Coast, Strait of Georgia. If we scroll in here, at 6 o'clock is 1Z. There's 7 p.m., 8, 9, 10, 11. So it shows some wind coming up the sound about right around 11 midnight here. It starts picking up across Tacoma, Olympia as well. So it's going to get a bit blustery here. And if I go to total wind gust here, you can see some 30 mile per hour gusts, but look down towards Olympia and Tacoma. You might get something up towards 40 miles per hour. And as we scroll on in through tonight, it's supposed to remain blustery in through tomorrow morning. Actually, look at that 34 for Seattle there. Not bad. But we got a lot of active weather to talk about after that as well. We got another system that's going to try to roll in here on Sunday, which we're going to take a look at. And then there's another one potentially next week. And there's multiple potential systems next week as well. We're going to look at that in some detail also. Had some local trees down in Westport, breezy in Olympia, all the happy squirrels. So let's start it off. Has the North American model, is the 0Z running yet? It is not. So I'm going to take a look at this. Let's do a comparison versus the 12Z run. This is that low up here north of Vancouver Island mainly. You can see the pressure gradient though, bringing the strong winds this evening for some areas. But as we go off in towards Saturday, you'll notice the pressure falls happen right off the coast. And you can kind of see that low pressure, the next one coming up here, trended a tiny bit weaker here with the 18Z, but still pretty similar. And this is going to bring some gusty winds with it as well. It's not a particularly strong low pressure or a deep low pressure, but it's got a decent pressure gradient, and it probably will be deepening as it moves across the region here. And I'll go ahead and take a look at the European on that here in a moment as well. Let's see. Do I have a better map to look at here? Let's do this. Let's go to... because we got brand new data here on the 18Z European, so it's always worth looking at. Western Washington weather is here. Matthew Fab. It's got a Facebook page as well. Western Washington. Quite windy in Southwest Washington now. Kamloops, BC. Yeah, fall is here. I mean, active second half of October is upon us. And like I mentioned earlier, we're still waiting for places like Seattle. It hasn't been raining much. We've got a few hundredths of an inch here across some of the Central Sound, but we're still waiting. That atmospheric river that's bringing all the rain to northern areas right now is not down across like the Central Sound or Tacoma or Olympia too much right now. And in fact, we can take a look at that also. We'll take a look at the radar scope here. And let's go ahead and pop up the Dopplers. We'll take a look at Camino Island first. And you can see the difference between the Seattle Metro and Vancouver Island, and at times across some of Whidbey and the island counties here. If we click on the coastal Doppler, you can see the coast has been raining for several hours now, and it's just continuing. Get some rain shadowing activity here across some of the Central Sound. So that is the reason for that. So taking a look, I want to look at this here for the European for tomorrow. If we scroll off, you can see that low pressure developing here. And you'd look at this and you might be like, yeah, this is not a very deep low. But these can pack surprises. You see as we go through very early Sunday morning, this thing is tracking right over the area. So, you know, if that deepens a little bit more, you can imagine that pressure gradient is going to be much tighter. And you could easily start to bring some gusts up over 45 miles per hour for the Seattle Metro. And there's still a lot of leaves on trees and whatnot. And we haven't had much wind so far this year. So any dead snags or trees that have been weakened over the summertime, those can come crashing down rather easily. Versus when you get later on in the year and you're dealing with a January windstorm, there's no trees on the leaves, and the trees are kind of tested, and they've had the weak, rotten portions of the trees already broken off. So you got to watch out for that. And you can see that low again tracking right across the Olympic Peninsula here, and then moving across central BC and then across the region. And we're going to get a decent pressure rise behind that as well. So it's going to remain blustery probably on the way in through Sunday night. And then we start to look off across the Pacific Ocean. You see all the way to the bottom left of this page, there's a system that's going to be developing here and trying to get towards the west coast. And some of the previous runs have been showing a pretty dynamic system here. And we're going to look at the control run on the European, and you can see that kind of creeping around out there across the Pacific Ocean. So the big question is next week is, what is this system going to do? And check the chat here for a moment. Light winds, Vancouver Island right now. Bellingham, not much rain yet. A little gusty, some white caps. So let's go ahead and do this. I'll show you the, actually, let's do that as the European. It's not quite running yet. This is the artificial intelligence model here. it always, when you've been forecasting weather in the Pacific Northwest for any length of time and you see these late breaking waves here and they kind of deepen as they're making landfall, it really catches your attention because just a few millibars difference on that, it's starting to pack a pretty good pressure gradient of 8 millibars here across, places from Portland up towards Seattle. And especially if it goes in a little bit deeper, or if this develops a little bit quicker than forecast, you can really pack a punch here. And in October, like I mentioned, you can start to bring down some of those trees. Pouring the lower mainland in Vancouver. And so we only have that much data here. But I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the 12Z European because I'll start to show you what we're concerned about with next week a little bit here. And we'll go ahead and compare that to yesterday afternoon. So this is this morning's European model run here. And as I scroll through, you can see the system moving through tonight. And this is what's causing the strong southeast winds here across some of the interior and across some of the Strait of Georgia. And it was causing some pretty strong winds right towards Vancouver Island this morning. That system swings through atmospheric river. Frontal system is going to be hanging over the area. And then this is the backside of that atmospheric river here. And again, you can see that low pressure developing on both model runs there and moving right across western Washington, southwest BC, and then across the Rockies here. And then we wait a little bit, get a couple days of a break, relatively speaking, and then we look out and you can see this next system approaching the coastline. You can kind of see the model disagreement here. You can see yesterday's European has a fairly deep low moving right off the tip of Vancouver Island. This would bring some very windy conditions for some portions of the Pacific Northwest, but this one's even a little bit more concerning here for like Seattle Metro, Portland Metro, and some of the Willamette Valley and the Puget Sound, some of the Washington, Oregon coast, because it's not as strong as a low, but the proximity is much closer. And then you can see that 979 millibar low here moving up the coastline. Pretty intense pressure gradient with that, and then lifting across the region. Strong pressure rise behind that system would bring some very blustery winds. So that's what we're kind of watching here. And the models continue to show that low moving up. But of course, that's what always happens. The GFS wants to throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into things here, and I'll play that through right now. So here we go. Here goes Sunday's system right there. And again, kind of that developing low moving across there. Meteorologists watching that one closely as we go through the day Sunday. And then we look out across Pacific Ocean, and you can see the 12Z run has this system and it moves it up the coastline a bit more. That's a little bit more concerning because there's a strong pressure rise that would move up across western Oregon and towards western Washington. But look at the 18Z, kind of took this low and really weakens it. This is just a decaying low here, and just some blustery conditions, not much to speak of. But after that, you can see additional storm systems out here, potentially these low pressure systems moving across the area, that those could also be wind makers as well. So we have several different options as we go through the extended forecast coming up. So that's what the GFS threw out, is with the 18Z run. And of course, I don't think I looked actually at the European ensemble mean as of this morning as well. I want to check that one out, and we'll make that a little small. West Coast weather, Jonathan Pulley is here from Whidbey Island. He's got a Facebook page as well. He has a YouTube channel also. We're all on X and we're all on Blue Sky. So, okay, so taking a look here. There goes our system. So here goes Sunday's system here, the European ensemble mean. This is just an average of all 50, so just kind of showing that. We're not going to look at details too much. We're just going to get an overall picture of a general overall picture. So here we go. It does have this slow moving up here, but you can see there's not really good model agreement on just how strong this low is going to be moving up along the coastal areas, but we're still a ways out. So it's just something we have to watch. There is windstorm potential with that system here, and then we're going to continue to be a bit active as we go towards the end of the month coming up. And actually, I want to back out here. We're going to go back to the European, and we're going to go to upper level heights, and we're going to check something out here as well. And we're going to bounce things out. Oceanic, we'll go to Pacific, Gulf of Alaska, and we'll take a look at here because, and let's just compare this to the GFS as well, because there's some interesting stuff showing up through the extended forecast that I want to take a look at here that I didn't really study too much this morning. But there goes the system on Sunday. That could bring the windy conditions locally with that. We'll take a look at the high resolution models in that here in a moment. And so then we get this energy gets cut off a bit across Pacific Ocean there. And actually this is the 18Z. Let me back up. Sorry about that. And let's go ahead and reload the GFS here. I probably should do a little bit of a wider view here, but you can kind of see that low pressure or the energy get cut off the upper lows of the atmosphere. And then this system tries to eject back northward here. And we're actually getting some better model agreement with this polar lobe kind of picking up this system and pushing it through the Pacific Northwest. We came into some better agreement there at the 12Z runs, and then possible additional systems after that with the active Gulf of Alaska as we go through about the 10-day period here. So you can kind of see that active weather probably continuing on towards the end of the month as well. So that's kind of interesting here. We do have that polar lobe. You can see it coming down and merging here and then lifting this energy. Because what this will do is it goes down and sets up off the Pacific Ocean. It will tap some subtropical air also. So this will have a little bit of a subtropical tap, helping to increase that pressure gradient there. And it helped, temperature gradient there on the mid-latitude cycle will bring some additional energy. So that was the 12Z run. And we're going to go now and take a look at the European, the 18Z. And we're going to go out as far as we can here. And we're going to take a look at that. And we'll compare it to the GFS again. Now we're going to scroll through that. And let's see what changed. Because there goes Sunday system right there swinging through. And then that energy gets cut off over the Pacific Ocean. Now, where do we start to change? It's too bad it only goes out 144 hours, but you can see the GFS starts to eject this much quicker here on the 18Z run. So big model disagreement starting to emerge here. So we're kind of in limbo because I want to see which model flips and flops. As we go to the 0Z, it'll probably tell us a lot, because if the GFS flips back towards the European or backs off on this solution here, ejecting back towards the West Coast, we're probably looking at the European being more correct. And I always hedge with the European a little bit when you start to see these differences emerge. But at the same time, it kind of throws a monkey wrench into things here, although you can see the Gulf of Alaska troughing continuing. There's going to be additional windy systems here rolling in through the end of the month potentially as well. Snow in southern British Columbia now. I imagine you have some elevation going on there as well. Let's see here. We got almost 300 people watching. Not bad. How do I get the chat back on here? There we go. There's the chat. Okay. Yeah, and the chatter in some of the weather community here in the Pacific Northwest is the fact that we have not had a large region-wide windstorm in some time. I mean, we had a pretty strong storm like in 2018 that came up across Vancouver Island. But that wasn't too unusual of a storm. It was a fairly strong low and whatnot, but it was not that unusual of a storm. And we had a good one in 2019, January as well, that came right up the Puget Sound, but more of a local wind event. It did bring a 60-mile-per-hour gust to SeaTac, but not the big region-wide windstorm like 2006. It's really been 2014. We had a good one, and it brought some really big gusts, for example, to the Portland metro area. And it was a fairly windy system for Seattle, but for the most part, it was not a big region-wide windstorm, even though it was kind of a classic track storm, which means it moved up the west coast and brought a nice pressure rise with it. So since 2006, we've really kind of been hunting for the next big region-wide windstorm. Windy conditions in Forks right now, power out for a lot of folks, raining all day and getting rainier. Yeah, classic stuff, classic fall system here, atmospheric river. $200 feet, snow at 200 feet, not sticking though. The 12Z Euro was hinting at that, yes. A pretty windy solution. And in fact, if we go out here, I'm going to show you this, because this is from, actually, here's the 18Z. So this is Sunday system here, and you can kind of see how we're still all over the place. I mean, look at this for Bellingham. The control run is at 50, but look at like ensemble member number 2, 9 miles an hour. That's basically probably because that low is just becoming in a bit weaker on that run. It's probably tracking right over the Bellingham area. But look at some of these ensembles. Don't show much wind at all, but some of them are pretty darn right extreme. You can see 49, 50, 59. What is that? 53, 53, whatever that one is. So you can see the uncertainty with that late breaking wave moving across the region. And here, let me show you this. Let's go back to, we'll go to the 18Z and we'll go to wind and we'll go to 80 meter wind speed and we will show that, compared it to yesterday afternoon's model. Let's take a look here. Do we still have that? And for some reason it doesn't want to load. There we go. But if we scroll through there and we go on in through very early Sunday morning, you see the system developing out there. It doesn't quite catch it. So we'll move to the 06Z here. And we'll go out another 6 hours. But you can see the differences between, so this is the 06Z. This is late last night's run versus this late morning or afternoon run. And you can see this much weaker low with the wind, and the shift here, the southerly winds out ahead of that weak system, but the much stronger low here on the 18Z run with the winds reaching much further up the Washington coastline. And this would be a stronger wind event here as well. So that's why there's a lot of model disagreement on just how windy we are going to get across some of the interior areas. Hope that makes sense. Over 7 inches up in British Columbia in some areas. I mean, I know you're getting a lot of rain. That's kind of crazy. Strong wind gust north Whidbey Island. Power plant outages, internet outage. Hello, GG2266. 2007. Somebody's gonna have to. Okay, good. Yeah, that fire hose is eventually going to drop south, but most of it is going to be unleashed on Vancouver Island. So here, I'll play this through here. You can see that plume of moisture all the way back across the Pacific. I don't know if you call it an atmospheric river, you can give it whatever nickname you want. And if it comes from the Hawaiian Islands, people like to call it a pineapple express. If it stretches back across the Pacific towards the Philippines or whatever, you can get any nickname you want. Panda Express, I gave one last year. But you can see that plume coming all the way across the Pacific Ocean there. And then if you put that into motion, look at just that relentless heavy rain. Here, I'm clicking hour at a time. And you can see it bounce back. It kind of gives a little bit of a break as we go through tonight into tomorrow morning. But then it kind of floods back in there across Vancouver as the low moves across Haida Gwaii into western BC. And then you can see the plume really takes aim at the Olympic Mountains, some of the North Cascades. But you'll notice that as we go through tomorrow, even Saturday, not a lot of precipitation for Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia, and Portland, or for the southern Washington Cascades. And then that system, you can see it developing here. And then finally we get the precipitation to move down across Seattle and Portland here as the frontal system moves down. But it's really going to be pale in comparison to the precipitation across western BC and some of northwest Washington. And then you can kind of see that sliding through the area there. So yeah, that's that atmospheric river, a pretty sharp precipitation cutoff here. So some places, again, across Vancouver Island, just absolutely getting plastered. Western BC, higher terrain, eventually the Olympics and some of the North Cascades. But like for Seattle, this is not that rainy of an event overall. Yeah, I know the 2021 BC atmospheric river was big time here. And it's still early in the season, but there's probably still going to be some landslides and some flooding issues, because when you put that much rain over any given area, you're always going to have problems. But at least we're not in January, and if once you have some pretty excessive rainfall amounts and then you get one of these big atmospheric rivers, is when things can get really bad. Yeah, that's an interesting question here. Let's see if I can bring that up. Does anybody have the date off the top of their head as far as the Vancouver Island, or the Vancouver, British Columbia 2021 atmospheric river? What date did that occur on? I know it was 2021. I'm drawing a blank on even the month here. So when was that? I forgot exactly what month and day that was. I know it was 2021, but if anybody wants to give me that date, I will go ahead and search this up. 14th, 15th November. Okay, that sounds about right. Okay, let's take a look here. So we'll start at the 12th, and we'll go to change parameters. We'll go to all, we'll go to severe, so we can look at the precipitable water, entire atmosphere, precipitable water. And yeah, we're going to dive down a little bit here so we can see a little bit further south. So yeah, there's the unmistakable plume right there. I don't remember exactly how much rain fell in previous days, but we're going to scroll through here. If I can get it to register. Here we go. But you can kind of see that how this one was a little bit further south. This was definitely more of the Pineapple Express variety, a little bit further south there. But you can see that impressive plume of moisture that was just moving into the area there. And you can see that atmospheric river. Now we're on into about 7 p.m. on the 14th. And you see that little bounce back to the north there? That's probably what really put things over the top for British Columbia. Because if I back up, you'll see that deep moisture really arrive here as we go through really about the evening of the 13th. It really starts to arrive in the atmospheric river, and then you can see it just continue all the way on to the 14th, and then finally kicks through there on the afternoon of the 15th. But yeah, that was an incredible flooding event for sure. But yeah, there's your meteorological playback of November 14th and 15th, 2021. And I'm gonna play the HRRR here. We're gonna look at this real quick. I want to look at the wind gust swath in the 0Z. So that's between 6 and 7. You can see Bellingham actually peaking right about now, according to the HRRR. Actually, no, look at that. Even between 7 and 8, 59 miles per hour for Bellingham. Geez, so wind is continuing up there. And so yeah, Olympia looks like it's pretty windy right now, according to the HRRR. I saw that it was gusting around 30 miles per hour. And if we scroll on in through about, when did that pop up for Seattle? So looks like some gusty winds moving through the Central Sound, but not like what you've been getting across Whidbey Island, Port Townsend, San Juans, Bellingham, Washington Coast. You can see some gusts up towards 50 miles per hour too. We had significant snows the week before. On the day Sunday, there'll be some rain for Seattle. Abbotsford hit 100 millimeters, almost 4 inches on November 14th. That's pretty insane. So we're just checking out the active weather coming up here over the next couple of days. We got a windy system going on tonight. It's probably going to get a bit blustery around the Seattle area, and Tacoma and Olympia. Looks like it's going to get a bit blustery tonight also. We're going to scroll in through tomorrow morning. Still remains blustery across some of the Central Sound. And the high resolution 0Z run is only at the 33 hours right now. I'm going to back this out a little bit here so we can see more of the Pacific Northwest. And let's update that. Make sure we got all the most recent data. How far are we out? 40 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the HRRR has been kind of downplaying that next system it looked like earlier today. Let me take a look at what it's showing now. Yeah, you can kind of see that weak system right there. Just kind of last minute popping off that low right across southwest BC as we go through the day Sunday. I mean, it's a decent pressure gradient, but it's nothing to write home about, being some blustery conditions. Oh, the NAM 0Z is not running yet, no doubt. Let's take a look at the surface wind, 80 meter wind speed. So we will be relaxing that wind some as we go through tomorrow, but you still see it's pretty blustery out there. And, you know, Washington coast there. Not as windy as today, though. And you can see the atmospheric river hanging out here. Then you see that late breaking wave right there, trying to spin up, bringing some blustery conditions again across the northwest interior, potentially some of the Central Sound also. But yeah, the wind picks up pretty well as we go through the late morning hours on Sunday. Look at that. And that's pretty alarming looking too. And you saw that wasn't a very strong low. Look at some of these 80 meter wind speeds, streamlines, knots. I mean, you're talking about 50 knots sustained at 80 meters. It's pretty wild. So let's see, let's do this. So yeah, as you're going through Sunday morning, check it out. You can see the 50s popping up in Vancouver, BC, even, you know, Bellingham, Whidbey Island again. And Seattle, I mean, gusting almost 40 miles per hour. People out there doing soccer games with the kids and whatnot, if you're out and about running errands. And you can see the frontal system draping down across the area. Let's also do this. We'll look at the HRRR, and you can kind of see the precipitation just kind of off and on some of the Puget Sound here, but much heavier off to the north, the North Cascades, the Olympics. And then you see it kind of creeping down as we go through Saturday a little bit there. Another round, still kind of missing the Seattle metro for the most part. As you can see, people in Seattle are like, yeah, this atmospheric river, I don't see nothing. But right to the north of us here, it's just absolutely hammered with that atmospheric river. And then the frontal system starts to push through as we go through the day Sunday. So that's where Seattle's going to get its rain as we go through Sunday late morning or early afternoon. Yeah, we can check out the snow. I mean, this, you might get a little something behind, but this atmospheric river is not going to be bringing a bunch of snow with it or anything. These things are usually on the warmer side. Let's go to winter, and we'll go to 24. Let's just go to snow total. But you can kind of see this is not, we're not talking about a lot of snow. It's not the big weather story with this here. Right at the end, you can kind of see some cooler air moving in behind the front there, maybe for, you know, we're not looking at big amounts or anything like that. And we're going to go back to surface wind here. And we're going to continue to wait for this to load. Hour 43. Let's check the wind gust swath here again. So I want to see what Seattle gets to near the end of the run here. It looked like those winds were picking up during the day Sunday. Hour 43, still 39 miles an hour for Seattle there. But man, look at that. That's close to 60 miles per hour there for Bellingham. But that's actually occurring right now and tonight. Bellingham doesn't look too bad currently, though. Looks like things have calmed a little bit. Yeah, it was definitely windy earlier, so maybe the HRRR is a little bit off here because you can see the winds are on the decline here. Slightly breezy in Meadowdale. Kurt Kaplan in the house. Yeah, this is probably late morning for Seattle Metro. There's going to be winds again, though, on Sunday. Yeah, the wind, the HRRR is way off. You can tell. I mean, it was calling for gusts up over 55 miles per hour during this time frame. It's just way off. So we can just kind of throw that out the window. We'll go back to the North. Oh, the North American model is now running. What are we at here? We're only 5 hours out, but I don't know. I mean, the NAM even says, look at that. It shows kind of its strongest winds happening right between 7 and 8. Maybe it'll pick up again. I don't know, but it's been on a downward trend there here. It also shows Seattle picking up here, but look at Tacoma, 43, 44 for Olympia here coming up. I mean, will it gust that much? Then 38 for Seattle, 39. So we'll see. I don't know. Those are pretty strong winds, and yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's a good question because I actually clicked on a Whidbey Island tempest here, and you can see some pretty good gusts started showing up. I'm going to update that. Up towards 39. And you figure this isn't probably an official location. This might be somebody's backyard or just on a rooftop here with trees around. So gusts up to 40 miles per hour are pretty significant. If I click on, let's try this one right here. I have no idea what these weather stations are, so just kind of bear with me here. See, it's got the wind advisory thing there, and if I click on that and we go to winds, see, this could be in somebody's backyard on a fence, you know, with trees around for all I know. Let's check out, I'm going to check out here Whidbey Island, see what this is. Very heavy rain. Wow, check that out. Fairly gusty, but yeah, it's still, I don't know the sittings of any of these stations out there, so probably not too, you know, shouldn't be looking into that too much. Still got the wind. We got a hydraulic outlook, and you can imagine why. If you've been watching since the beginning of this live stream, that we got some pretty heavy rain moving into the Olympics here and some of the Cascades as well. See what this says. Periods of moderate to heavy rainfall through the weekend. Atmospheric river over the region. Elevated threat for urban and small stream flooding due to excessive rainfall. Rises in small streams. Minor flooding. Yeah, pretty typical stuff there. And not much else going on in the way of that. Yeah, I'm really as far as next week's system, I'm really curious as to what the models are going to bring coming up here. I'm going to take a look at the icon as well. Let's look at this is a German weather model here. It's doesn't have too great of a reputation, but I just want to compare it to the GFS. See if it shows what the GFS or what the European is showing. And it's a shame because I think the 18Z only goes out 120 hours, and yeah, it does. But you can kind of see the GFS looks like it might be a little bit of an outlier. The icon has this draped back further to the south. And I just want to take a look at the 12Z Canadian. Canadian does, actually, let's do this. Canadian ejects out a little bit quicker as well, but that still is a more dynamic system for the Pacific Northwest there also. So yeah, lots to worry about. That's still a fantasy forecast off into the extended forecast. I almost clicked on your Tempest. Yeah, I was wondering about that if I was going to click on yours. I'm not sure which one exactly it is. Well, you can set up your station. It depends on what you want. If you have a good wind run, you might want to set it up a little bit more for wind. Your temperature will be a little bit off if you're on top of a roof or whatnot, or if you're a little bit higher versus closer to the grass. Officially, you're supposed to set up for temperature about 4.5 feet above grass. For wind, of course, you're supposed to be as high as you can get without any, surrounding obstacles and trees. I manage one of the hotels in Lake Quinault. That sounds like fun. Yeah, I have 2 of those Tempest stations at my house right now. I have one up on the roof because I like to test it and compare the wind speeds that it registers. And I have one over my backyard in the grass so I can compare temperatures. And it actually does quite well. It's very accurate. The problem is with these all-in-one weather stations is that you're always kind of compromising. And that's usually the case with weather stations. Unless you want to spend $1,500 on a weather station so you can co-locate the anemometer versus the thermometer, and you can do that with some other ones too, but yeah, some of the weather stations out there are pretty downright cheap. And when this weather station first came on, I was pretty hesitant. I told the guy, I was like, hey, I'm really nitpicky about my weather stations. I worked for the National Weather Service. I worked with professional wind equipment for years, and I weather stations and setups, and I was very specific on my wind readings and my weather readings, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was an affordable product and it does pretty well. That's really the only reason I've decided to push it. I've had a couple other companies approach me about pushing their weather stations, but they don't connect to the internet, and they've got active batteries inside them that the systems don't look too robust. And I've actually been testing one, and it's not bad, but it doesn't hook to the internet. You can't view it from your smartphone and things like that. So it's kind of not something I want to promote. Yeah, the rainforest. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's the only rainforest in the lower 48 is right there on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington. Yeah, the European is still superior. I haven't actually looked at scores in a while. I need to do that, but the European is usually superior. Let's see what else. Still try to catch up on some of the chat here. Wind just picked up big time in Olympia. Let's see if that registers on the... Yeah, it's still howling out there. It's not too windy in Bellingham. .28 at the Olympia airport there. But it doesn't mean it's not windy in other areas. Let's go out towards Yeah, check it out. Look at Westport. Westport's blowing pretty well. Yeah, gusting over 40 miles per hour at times on at Westport. That is classic. Classic fall frontal system rolling through here. Atmospheric river, I should say. Hoquiam, what's Hoquiam been gusting up to here? 37. Picking up there on the coast. Check it out. Wind speed sustained at 30 miles per hour. That's not bad. That'll get your attention. Yeah, that's a lot of the problems around in the Pacific Northwest. People have trees all over their yard and whatnot, so it can be really tough. Yeah, there's always a compromise. It's the fact of weather station life. Yeah, we have some of the biggest trees in the world out here. Bud Inlet, the boats are dancing around. Nice. So again, if you guys missed this, here we go with the mid-level water vapor. It just starts north of Hawaii here. Look at that plume just continuing to pour into Vancouver Island. Not much rain for Seattle just yet. And this back here is Sunday system. So right back here, that's what we're going to be watching crawling up here as we go through the day. Sunday. There's going to be a low pressure system that tries to develop and move right over the region here. And we're going to try to take a look at that right now again. Let's go back to northwest. We're going to look at 80 meter wind speed. We're going to see if all the, oh, that's the 0-1. Let's go back to the 0Z and we'll check this out. So here we go on in through Saturday night. We're going on in towards Sunday morning. And you can see, I mean, the HRRR's got the little punchy system out here too. That's going to bring some strong winds across the region. You can be gusting 40 miles per hour in Seattle. That'll get your attention for sure. So yeah, we're on there for Sunday, it looks like. I mean, it's calling 39 for Seattle, but that's a gale. It could bring down some branches and whatnot. But again, another windy day across the northwest interior and the Washington coast for sure. And let's do this. Let's bring up the Radar Omega. So we are on the MMRS. We're going to take a look at the last 50 frames. Just going to watch the precipitation rolling in here. Yeah, you can see just the continuation of this moderate heavy rain across a lot of Vancouver Island. And you can click on these details here. You see the rainfall warning expires in almost 14 hours there. Storm totals approaching 100 millimeters is about 4 inches of rain. And exceeding 200 millimeters, 8 inches of rain in some of the mountainous terrain. Inland regions, Vancouver Island can expect storm totals ranging from 50 to 100 millimeters. Rivers, minor coastal flooding. Let's see. What else? So let's click on, let's take a look at this one. 80 to 120 millimeters there. So, I mean, you're still talking close to 4 inches expected in Metro Vancouver, mountains, the Fraser Valley West. 120 plus over the North Shore Mountains. Yeah, it's really that time of year too. If you have active drainage systems and whatnot, the leaves are really coming off the trees and those can really exacerbate flooding. If you have water skipping over some of those drains, it can run into people's homes and whatnot. So gotta watch out for that. Mid-Island has been the focus of the rain most of the, yeah, indeed. In fact, I'll back this up even a little bit more. We'll go back 100 frames and maybe even more after that. Let's see, and we'll let this load. Yeah, it's never ending there. The last 100 frames you can see just continuing to pour into Vancouver Island there. So let's do even more. Let's go all the way back 250 frames here. Let that load up for a second. Yeah, pine cones. I mean, those can really get caught in trains and just absolutely, exacerbate some of the issues there. But man, yeah, look at that just pick up during the day. Now, so the Olympics are really getting it right now as well as some of the coastal areas. And you got to remember, so not all of this is being picked up as well. The Doppler radars have a little bit difficulty here with the terrain. Once the beams run into the terrain, it's not accurately depicting the radar or the precipitation. Yeah, I noticed that a whole bunch of squirrels on my couple dog walks I did today. They were just out in force. I saw like 9 squirrels, just like in about a 5-minute period. They were just all over the place. But yeah, if it's going back and forth here during the day today, you can see not much for Seattle, huge amounts for Vancouver Island. And now the Olympics are really getting hammered as well. And in fact, if we do this, if I go to satellite, Northeast Pacific, let's try this. We're going to take it off visible. We're going to go to mid-level water vapor loop. There we go. And we're going to go back 250 frames. And let that load. Yeah, it's kind of interesting here. You can see really that cold air aloft that came down across the region here when you had the thunderstorm activity. Then you can see the cloud shield from the atmospheric river just approaching here. As we went on in through yesterday afternoon, you can see the clouds approaching. Trough digging out across the Intermountain West, and of course the clouds continue to get closer and closer and closer. And I'll speed it up a little bit there. Then you see the atmospheric river just burrowing into Vancouver Island. And it's going to go on for a little bit longer, too. You probably saw right at the end of the run there. Right at the end of the run. This stuff is still flying up into Vancouver Island. Squirrel Fest 2024 indeed. So let's see. Did I look at... Yeah, the European 18Z run data is out. The control run said 43. So what did Bellingham get officially? Let's take a look at that. Let's compare that a little bit. Oh, looks like it picked back up here for Bellingham. Back up to gusting to 30, it looked like. So maybe that window picked back up again here. But I swear I saw 45. I see 45 right there. So a little bit windier than what the Europeans said for Bellingham. But for, let's do Whidbey Island. Whoops. Yeah, 53. And what I know we were getting mid-50s there. So that's not bad. The European did pretty good there. Then you can see the next system coming here on Wednesday. But still, these late-breaking waves, man, they just play havoc with the forecast. Because I've seen these really come in just a few millibars deeper, and that pressure gradient really gets increased, and you start to increase the wind speed from 35 to 45, and you're starting to do some damage to trees. Yeah, the blue jays were out in force today too. There was actually a hawk in a tree, and there was like 4 blue jays kind of swarming it. It was kind of crazy. Or should I say stellar jays? I call them blue jays, but I get corrected on that sometime. But yeah, so here's Whidbey Island. You can see as we go on in through Sunday, it's talking about some upper 40s here, and some of the ensembles have even above 50 again there. If we look at Seattle, so the control has 40, and that could cause some issues for some areas of the Seattle metro. Of course, there's a lot of wind-sheltered areas in Seattle. Some places get a little bit more exposed. Some places are on the water. So you can see some of the ensembles are up into the mid-40s as well. If we take a look at Tacoma, mid-30s. Let's look at Olympia. It's showing some gust potential to 40 there as well. And a lot of times the European will underdo these a bit too. Some of these wind gusts tend to come in a little bit lower. There's Hoquiam out on the Washington coast. Let's scroll down and do Oregon a little bit here. I want to take a look at, let's do Astoria first. Yeah, a weaker system for places down on the Oregon coast. Look at Tillamook there. Yeah, not much to write home about. Can anybody confirm that? So that the highway to Tofino has been washed out from the rain, actually damage to the roadway, or just water over the roadway? I wonder. The Gravy Train Outdoors there with an interesting comment. Oh, what did I do there? Is 3 considered a cloud when it comes to raindrops? I have no idea. Oh, is Terry? Yeah, Terry's in the house there. Yeah. Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for showing up, you guys. Yeah, the deer will eat those young trees if you're in an area where the deer pass through, man. They will decimate those smaller plantings. Okay, so well, how are we doing now? Let's see. I'm getting a little breezy there off the Oregon coast, Astoria. So right off the tip there, it looks like it's pretty breezy as well. Wind speed 39 sustained. That's not bad. There's some pretty good gusts right off the coastline here. 20 miles west of the Columbia River mouth. Gusting 40 miles per hour. A little bit further south, though, it's not too bad. Willamette Valley, not too windy right now as well. Highway 4 Kennedy Lake is closed, BC. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to start, we're into the more busy season, and I need to do probably like even weekly briefings, at least for a little bit, even if it's just for 30 minutes or something like that, just to check in and do some Q&A and stuff. Just north of Arlington, Keith Evans, Soaker up there north of Arlington. That area of Highway 4, British Columbia, prone to flooding. So yeah, if you're just joining, we're undergoing that atmospheric river. It's mainly staying north of the Seattle Metro. Pretty good forecast there. That front will eventually be swinging through on Sunday with the system back here that's going to bring some winds across the area on Sunday. And then we're going to drop some energy off here. It's going to tap a little bit of subtropical moisture, and that's going to try to bring a storm system back into the west coast of North America. And some of the models have been showing a fairly robust system with windstorm potential with that. And then we're going to have another active Gulf of Alaska trough going on that could spawn some additional systems as we go on in through the end of next week as well. So we're going to remain active most likely coming up here. And in fact, I did want to look at that. So we've got this. I'm going to go to surface moisture, and we're going to check that out. I want to see what kind of tap that this system gets. Let's go to precipitable water, and we're going to go back to the 12Z run because it goes out much further. Actually, let me try this. Crazy Horse, thanks for the generosity. So the 18Z, I got some data on the 18Z. Okay, so you can see the atmospheric river, and you can see it bouncing around here on Vancouver Island and some of western Washington. And then we get the frontal system passage. We're going to have a little bit of wind with that. Again, northwest interior, gust to 40 maybe for Seattle. Frontal system passes through. Then the slow dives down here. And you can kind of see that has a subtropical tap with it. It does grab some of that precipitable water. And then it's going to merge back up here with some kind of polar lobe swinging through here, 500 millibars. And yeah, then that could bring a system back into the Pacific Northwest. In fact, this is a good time to look and to see and compare what is going on with the European and the GFS and the 18Z, because the GFS and the 18Z kind of threw a monkey wrench into the system next week, which is not that unexpected. But there goes the Sunday system here. And then we drop this energy out across Pacific Ocean. And the big question is next week, what happens with this? As it starts to eject a little bit slower than the GFS, a little bit further away from the coastline, and then merges with this trough and then kicks across the region. But yeah, you can see things are going to remain active as we go on into the extended. Look at this tropical system trying to get back up into here into the westerlies. But so anyway, let's back up here. And we're going to leave the GFS on there. And we're going to look at pressure. We'll go to the anomaly and we'll reload that. GFS 18Z, there we go. So there goes Sunday's system right there. You can see it both in the GFS and the artificial intelligence European. Scroll off into the future, and then we start to bring this low up towards the coastline here. And you see that the GFS wants to absorb this, but again, the 18Z European, this is trouble, folks, if this ends up, because these kind of lows that coming up the coast like that can bring a big area of a pretty impressive pressure rise, and these can cause pretty damaging winds. This is basically kind of a classic, almost a classic track, like the Columbus Day storm, November 1981. We're talking about 2014 December, the classic track storms that come out from the south like that. Almost has that look to it there. So yeah, the European is still on board with that. Scroll out a little bit further. It's interesting. They both have that tropical system out there as well, but that shouldn't, that's just kind of me nerding out on things there. But then look at that ridge kind of develop on the European model here. That would probably actually try to push some air down across, Arctic air down across British Columbia, but we're not going to worry about that. It's just purely fantasy at this point. Nathan Gomez, thank you for the generosity. Oh, it's letting me reply to things now. Look at YouTube. So yeah, this windstorm is kind of getting my attention a little bit right there. But the GFS has it, but has it becoming absorbed as it moves on there? But I'm leaning towards the European right now, because even if we look at the European, the regular one, the deterministic, and we go back to 12Z for those of you who are just joining, we're going to compare that to the 12Z European GFS. And we'll make that one big in that, and then take a look here, and you can see that's trouble, folks. Look at that pressure gradient. And the GFS isn't too far off as well, because something diving into the coastline like that, if that comes in a bit deeper, that would be trouble also. So that's an interesting system out there, and the models have been pointing at it. The 18Z GFS is the first one really to kind of back off, but the 18Z European artificial intelligence continues to show it. So yeah, I'm still quite interested in that system there, and that one has kind of a subtropical tap. Reload the GFS there and back up. Frontal system passes through. There goes our low. And you can kind of see it has that tropical tap with it as it moves back up across the region. So yeah, we shall see. Fun weather watching coming up here. October 13th, 2020. Brought over 100,000 power outages to Western Washington. Shows what happens with lots of leaves. Yes, indeed. Those leaves act as sails on these trees. Glad you guys are watching every day. Thank you very much. Nathan Gomez. So yeah, we have some active stuff coming up here. It should be fun. It's always fun when we go into the fall months, as long as, or I'll find something fun with pretty much anything except maybe a huge fog dome, but I'd probably find some kind of cool time lapse to do otherwise. So yeah. So Sunday's going to be windy. It's already windy in some spots right now across Pacific Northwest. There's Sunday's frontal system. It's going to be starting probably during the morning hours and continuing on through the afternoon. Get a little bit of a break, and then the models are showing the potential for another strong storm to get up towards the region here as we go on in through maybe Thursday night. This thing's going to be developing out there, and then by Friday that could be really impacting the area. So we got plenty of time. You know, there's no reason at all to be concerned with that system right now. It's just kind of meteorological geek out time right now, just trying to find out what is coming next down the line. Burns, Oregon elk hunt, October 28th. That is a ways out there. You can see that's almost 10 days out, just the beginning of that. I'd probably be checking back on that one. Jeez. Over 200 millimeters for some areas of the west coast of Vancouver Island. 8-9 inches so far. Phil Hyde, thank you very much. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Yeah, I'll let you know when my cloud seeding machine comes from Amazon. I'll let you guys know when that happens. Yeah, and I get hyped up for windstorms and whatnot, but I know that the big ones especially can impact people, and even the smaller ones. You know, people get injured and worse in our windstorms here, and it can be, you know, it can be tragic. Just people walking through parks and whatnot, and they didn't quite know that a windstorm was coming, and then you get these dead snags falling off of trees and stuff. Wow, that's very generous of you. Thank you, Pacific Northwest guy. How do I reply to that? That is impressive. Thank you very much for the generosity. Yeah, very kind of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, the artificial intelligence European is still kind of a new model, but it's relatively comparable to the European from what I've noticed anyway. I mean, let's go ahead and maybe we'll do that. Let's do this. Actually, let's put on 500 millibar heights, and we'll go to. So I just want to compare the 12Z to see what it is showing here. I don't like this doing that though. Let's do this. Let's start off with that. Maybe it'll let us do the European here. There it does. Okay. So let's go back to 12Z. Just want to kind of compare here, and pretty close. I mean, you can see the 500 heights here, extended out across the Pacific Ocean. Pretty close. It starts to get a little bit of some differences emerging here as we go through about hour 150 plus. You can see it start to bring this shortwave here across the Gulf of Alaska, but the deterministic regular European has that further back west a little bit there. So yeah, it does have some differences there once you get off into the extended forecast. Yeah, thank you for the kind words also. Slow down, our squirrels can't tell one nut from another. That's pretty good. All right, got 8 more minutes here. Then I got to get back upstairs here. I was going to try to get off at 7 o'clock here, but you guys have been generous and it's been fun. And we'll go through things one more time here. Look at that plume of moisture. It's wild. If we look at, let's do the upper level. Goes 18 satellite imagery. You can see that low pressure right down across Arizona. Finally, Phoenix gets to cool off. You guys probably heard about the record highs down there. 21 straight days of record highs. Could you imagine Seattle or Vancouver or Portland, Spokane or Bend, Oregon or Boise? 21 straight days of record temperatures. That'd be insane. You'll get some rain, but it'll just kind of be a passing front. You're not going to get anything like Vancouver Island or the Olympic Mountains or the North Cascades or some of the higher terrain of the interior BC are getting out of this. You'll get some rain on the day Sunday and then on the afternoon Sunday. Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, Matthew's paying attention there. The 0Z NAM is showing that now, so we are starting to get into range here. Let's take a look at that. That's a good idea. So we'll put the pressure map on there, and we'll look at what was compared it to the last run. So here we go, atmospheric river over the region here as we go through Saturday. Notice the pressure gradient relaxing a bit there as we go through Saturday, but then we start to scroll a bit further off. Sorry about that. Let me do this. Let's back out so we can see the full thing here. So you can see that Sunday system right there. See that little subtle little feature there? You'd look at this and you'd go, look at that. That's not even a deep low pressure center there. But since it's tracking right over the area, it's going to be some concern going on there. A tiny bit weaker here on this run versus the 18Z, but you know, following steps could be a little bit different. I mean, we're not talking about huge region-wide windstorm. We're talking about early season windstorm taking down dead branches and trees that are weakened over the summer type thing here with this Sunday system. The extended one has better potential, but it's way out. It's off into the end of next week. We have plenty of time to work out those details. Bend, Oregon, 22 degrees this morning. Yakima, unseasonably warm this year. The leaves are about 2 weeks behind. Yeah, I noticed the color starting to really come out across the region. Nicholas Goodman, thank you for the generosity. You guys are awesome. Let's see, I'm trying to catch up on the chat here a little bit. You called it. You said there would be thunderstorms, and we did. No one else called it. I follow you daily, sometimes twice. Elk, Washington. Thank you for the kind words. Glad to be of help. A little bit weaker with the system here coming in. But I don't put too much stock into that GS yet. It's still showing the system, so it's probably still going to be fairly blustery on the day Sunday. "13 degrees, Three Rivers, Oregon this morning." Jiminy. Whew. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Chris. Yeah, so that is rolling in here, hour 41. Got about 5 minutes, folks. 5 more minutes. Yeah, you guys are great. You guys make it. I mean, without you guys doing this, it gives me the motivation, the people watching, the kind words, and I'm trying to make this actually my career. I have a flight controller at Alaska Airlines, but I'm trying to make these channels like something. This is my passion, and I want to chase nonstop and do these briefings and just be able to live stream all the time and bring like all the most up-to-date stuff to you guys and make that more of a permanent thing. And yeah, any support helps. Toledo, Oregon, mossbacks. Duncan, Vancouver Island checking in, pouring nonstop. How many questions can we slam? And this is currently looking at things. You can see the Hawaiian Islands down here. You can see that atmospheric river pouring in. This is Sunday system. This little ominous looking thing down there north of the Hawaiian Islands. The whirligigs are busy in Quilcene. Nice. Certified flight instructor out of Tacoma Narrows. That's a nice little airport. We're still in for La Nina. Yeah, I'm going to do that probably at some point tomorrow. I'm going to have a La Nina update out we're still scheduled for La Nina, but you know, it's on the weak side, but that doesn't really mean much because if you guys were here in December of 2008, that barely qualified for a La Nina. That was a weak La Nina, so it was. You know, I'm not too worried about it. And plus, every single year something fun happens here in the Pacific Northwest multiple times. Any typhoons out there? You haven't checked over there. Let's take a look. So, if you want to check there, you can go to the Himawari. There's a nice wave coming off across Japan right now. Looks like a developing system right there, and you can kind of see this tropical activity. It doesn't look like anything too extreme out there right now. Intertropical convergence zone. And for those of you guys looking here, you can see there's Japan right there. You can see China would be over here. There's North and South Korea right there. You can go all the way down towards Australia, Southern Hemisphere, where everything gets turned back around. And you can also go to GOES 19 satellite imagery on this. If it'll load, let's see. There we go. We had some wild turbulence across the Rocky Mountains yesterday. I was at work. I was working Alaska flights, so I was watching some of the turbulence reports come in there. And one guy, I think he gained 600 feet and then lost 1,000 feet. And the PIREP said that he did it in less than 10 or 10, about 10 seconds. Just an absolute roller coaster ride. That must have been wild. La Nina. Yeah, it's true. I mean, December 1990, cold neutral. We had multiple major Arctic blasts. We had two really wicked blasts there in December. I mean, 1990 was just legendary. I'd replay that again. They started spraying in Northern California. Always cracks me up. Let's go back to mid-level, and we're going to go back to 10 minutes here, and we're going to go back to GOES 18. Can't hear the audio over the pounding rain, so where are you? Is that Rache? Yeah. Yeah, and some of, and I know I think I heard somebody chatting about that, but if we take a look at, oh, if I can do this right, let's go back to Himawari. This website doesn't like to reload unless you force it. Okay. So a lot of times, you can see the Aleutian Islands here. A lot of times these typhoons out here, they eject a lot of energy into the jet stream, and you get really superpower some of these jet streams and really bring some potent systems all the way across the Pacific Ocean during, when you get especially on into November, December, and January. And so that's what kind of why we like to pay attention to things ongoing out here. I'll be doing more of that stuff as we get later into the season. Let's go back. I always click on the wrong thing there. Let's go back to the GOES 18. Oh, and for those of you guys who are wondering, I've been doing Blue Sky. I mean, there's a lot of good interaction on there. There's not as many people there yet, but you really avoid a lot of the drama. You don't have to deal with the porn bots and like the constant bots and spam and just constant ads and things like that. So I'm just trying to broaden my horizons here as far as the social media goes. Let's take another look here at, oh, I closed it on accident there. So oh well, we'll just close that down. Let's take a look at what the latest on the NAM shows. Yeah, you can see that little low pressure center. It's always kind of concerning. These come in a little bit deeper, like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show. The pressure gradient increases, and when the low pressure passes close by, you can get some pretty blustery conditions. In fact, let's take a look at that wind. And we're going to zoom in a little bit here, and we're going to take a look at what is to come. The NAM continues to show it getting blustery here tonight for Seattle. Look at my 1 a.m. 42 miles per hour. That's no joke. I mean, these winds picking up. I don't know. I think it might be overdoing that a little bit here because 42 miles per hour might be a little problematic. You'd probably get some power outages from that. And then I'm going to go back to now wind gust here and we'll take a look. So here we are into Sunday morning. And then the next system, you can see it developing out here off the coastline. There it goes, bringing its wind to the Washington, some of the Oregon coast there. It swoops through here, 38 miles per hour for Seattle. So, I mean, yeah, we'll bring another some blustery conditions through here. Yeah, the winds are going to be lesser. As you can see, they rapidly drop off as you go further to the south. But you could kick off some 40-plus mile per hour gusts here for a story and a little bit down the coastal areas as you go through Sunday. Not a lot for the Willamette Valley. A little blustery. But if I go through the wind gust swath, for example, now this ongoing, like right now, there's some pretty strong winds for the lee side of the Rockies there, as you can see. If we scroll through tonight, you can kind of see some gusty winds come for eastern portions too. I don't want to neglect everybody too much over there. It's going to get a little breezy, eastern Washington. But you see across portions of Oregon, not much wind as we go on in through Sunday morning. Then we get towards Sunday later morning. The next system comes rolling through there, and that's where it kind of stops. But yeah, I mean, we're not looking at a region-wide windstorm coming up here in the next few days. Potential for that increases as we go through next week because we've got some active weather continuing. Okay, I've already went past my allotted time that I promised. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Again, thanks for everybody for the generosity. I plan on doing these live streams more actively. I'm going to try to do them every other week. And hopefully I can do it every week. But yeah, what else? I'm going to do our normal briefings tomorrow, the California and the Pacific Northwest Weather Watch channel, of course. And we'll go over everything again. We'll be able to see last night's European model runs and we'll compare them versus the GFS and see what kind of chances we have for some big windstorms around here or what kind of precipitation is going to be moving in here next as we go on into the later portion of October. So, good night, everybody. Thanks for joining.